to the scary dark room, hey guys. Tonight, we take you deep into the cold silence of Norway's fjord villages, where the mountains cut into the sky like jagged teeth, and the waters below hold echoes of centuries-old whispers. Among those whispers is one name, one legend, that parents still use to hush restless children at night: the white-eyed woman. Before we get deep into the story, take a moment to like and subscribe to the video, and let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there right now. The legend begins in a village that no longer appears on any maps. It sat on the edge of a dark fjord, the kind where the sun vanishes early, leaving the valleys in a long shadow. In winter, the villagers would walk with lanterns swaying in the icy wind, their breath curling into fog. But the strangest stories never began in the warmth of daylight. They began at night, when the water froze at the edges and the forests pressed too close to the cabins. They say the white-eyed woman had once been real centuries ago, a young bride abandoned on her wedding night. Her husband-to-be had rowed out onto the fjord and never returned. Some said he drowned. Others whispered he had chosen another. The bride, wearing her dress, walked into the freezing water with her lantern. She was last seen standing waist-deep, her reflection flickering with the light. Then the lantern went dark. Days later, her body was pulled from the shore, eyes pale and clouded, skin stiff as ice. But the legend claims she never rested. The first to speak of her ghost was a fisherman. He returned one dawn, pale and shaking, telling of a woman walking across the frozen water, her veil dragging, her eyes two white pits glowing faintly in the dark. She had whispered his name, though her lips never moved. The man left the village and never returned. From then on, the stories spread. The white-eyed woman, they said, lured travelers, sailors, and lonely wanderers. She would appear on paths lit by lanterns or reflected in the fjord's glassy surface, standing behind you when you look too long. The horror of the legend is not just her appearance, but the rules whispered around her. Never walk alone after midnight. Never look into the fjord when the moon is full. And never, ever answer if you hear your own name carried on the wind. Years later, one winter, a group of students from Oslo traveled north for a photography project. They wanted to capture the untouched beauty of the old villages, to hike by lantern light and photograph the mountains mirrored in the black fjords. They had heard the stories, of course, but only as children's folklore. By the time they arrived, the village they found was nearly abandoned. A few cabins stood empty, windows nailed shut, doors creaking in the wind. The snow crunched under their boots as they laughed, setting up their cameras. But on their second night, the laughter turned uneasy. The fjord seemed to swallow sound. The air was so still they could hear each other breathing. One of them claimed he saw a woman across the ice. Far away, a smudge of white moving where no path led. They brushed it off as snow glare, as exhaustion, as imagination. But when they returned to the cabin, one of their photos showed more than they expected. In the far corner of the frame, where the darkness of the fjord met the shore, was a faint outline of a woman in a long dress. Her eyes were two pale circles, unblinking. Sleep became impossible. Each night, they heard soft knocks on the wooden walls, but when they stepped outside, no footprints marked the snow. One of them woke, screaming, saying he had dreamt of her face leaning close, her eyes filling his vision until all he saw was white. The others told him it was a nightmare, but none of them wanted to admit they, too, had begun hearing their names whispered in the still air. By the fourth night, the group planned to leave, but the snowstorm sealed the roads. That evening, one wandered outside alone, camera in hand, determined to capture proof of the legend. Hours passed, and he did not return. The others searched with lanterns, their lights swaying in the swirling snow, until they found his footprints leading straight onto the frozen fjord. At the edge, the prince simply stopped. His camera lay cracked in the ice, lens shattered. Inside the memory card, they found only one clear photo, a face blurred close, almost pressed against the glass, white eyes staring in. The survivors fled the next morning when the storm broke. They never spoke publicly about what happened, but those who lived near the fjords say one of the students never left at all. Sometimes in the dark, a new figure can be seen with her, the white-eyed woman standing in her veil, and beside her, a young man with eyes just as pale. Even today, when travelers go too far north and the fjords fall silent at night, locals warn them with the same words whispered for centuries. Never stare into the water too long. Never walk alone with a lantern. And if you hear your name in the wind, do not answer. For the white-eyed woman still waits, her pale eyes searching, her voice calling, always hungry for another soul to join her. And maybe, just maybe, if you visit the fjords of Norway, you'll feel it too, that strange silence, that chill that has nothing to do with the cold, as if unseen eyes are already watching you from the water. If this story chilled you, don't forget to subscribe to the Scary Darkroom for more terrifying tales.